My name is Bob Stewart, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to talk about virtual open houses and kind of the mechanics around a virtual open house. And so I did a similar webinar last week. In fact, real similar to what I'm going to do today. So if you were on that webinar last week, this is going to be a reinforcement of the message. I got a couple of things that I've tweaked or that I want to talk about today that we didn't talk about last week. And I actually want to start with this concept of taking action. We talk a lot in our world, in the kind of the Ben Kinney world, right? So Brivity's owned by Ben Kinney. Ben Kinney runs one of the most prolific expansion organizations, sales team expansion organizations in the United States. I think when the numbers finally come out from the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends for 2019, they're going to be the number 1 or number 2 team in the United States. And one of the reasons for this is because everything about Ben Kinney is predicated on taking action. And what happens when you guys come to a webinar like this, right? You do training at your office, you go out and learn something on your own. Think back to Ben Kinney and I traveling around the country in 2009, basically teaching his business. We even did it in his backyard in Bellingham, Washington. We went to Bellingham and we taught a couple of hundred agents in Bellingham, which is where Ben does business, kind of his hub and where he started. We taught him everything Ben does in his business, right? And this is a guy, if you think about being in that room back in 2009, where he shared everything he did in his business, to then turn around and look back 10 years later and think about the trajectory that Ben has taken versus the trajectory of the other 200 people that were in the room with us, you start to realize really quickly that you're not rewarded for what you know, but for what you do. And so you guys are going to learn some stuff here today, right? And you're going to hopefully walk away feeling like, all right, I can go do an virtual open house now. I know what to do. But in order for this to have any value, in order for the next hour to have any value, you have to take action on that thing. So all those people sitting in that room in Bellingham with us 10 years ago, most of those people simply know how Ben does business, right? They didn't actually go do. And so they didn't, over the last 10 years kind of reap the rewards that Ben's business has seen. And, when we were sitting in Bellingham back then, he still had a really, really kind of awesome business, right? He was doing 130 transactions a year. And 10 years ago, that was pretty staggering. It's staggering to me today still, but he, they did 3,000 last year, and without COVID, we were on track before all of this craziness to do 5,000 transactions this year. That's the goal for the team. But we're not rewarded for what we know, but for what we do. So let's talk for a second about why we don't take action, because some of you guys might have been on our call last week and you still haven't done a virtual open house. And so these are the reasons why we don't take action. I want you guys to look at these reasons, and I want you to think to yourself, because here's the reality. I don't know in your particular state, how far you are into this lockdown, right? But I guarantee you there are other agents in your area who have immediately shifted how they're doing their open houses and have moved to this virtual open house style. And so those people are taking action, right? And so if you haven't done this already, or maybe if you've done one, but you haven't done more and you should have done more, what is it on this list that is preventing you from taking action? Is it the fear of failure, right? Is it oh man, I could get out there and do this thing and something could go wrong? That was definitely something that used to panic me when we first did webinars, right? I'd be what if something went wrong? One time we had a webinar where there was 2,000 people on the webinar and the webinar shut down. One of our employees accidentally shut it down. So we've failed there before, right? We've failed multiple times. Uncertainty, right? Connie, that one is one where you're gosh, I don't know. I was talking to a friend of mine last night who texted me, and she was hey, I can't get my Zoom to broadcast onto Facebook Live. And I'm like, okay, like, please tell me that you're doing this as a practice. Not like are you trying to go live like right now? And she's like, no, I'm practicing. I've got my mom and my mother-in-law, like they're on here and they're going to go watch it and we're going to practice, right? So Connie, that's how we get over some of that uncertainty is maybe we practice the first time, right? Lack of permission, waiting for others to take action. If nobody else in your office has done this, maybe you're like, I just want to see somebody else kind of do this first, right? And then I'll go out and do this. Waiting for the right time, like guys, the right time to do what we're going to talk about today is right now, right? It's like this weekend, it's next Tuesday. There is no better time. Other people's opinions, like, I don't know. It seems, here's one that would be probably going through my head, like somebody going, oh yeah, but what if nobody comes and watches your open house, right? Okay, fine. Now I have a great video that I can send out to people who call and are interested in this property, but my seller doesn't want me bringing every Tom, Dick, and Harry through the place, right? So maybe it's too late. It's not too late. Like, I don't care if every single other agent in your market is doing this already. It's not too late. And then no time. I want to share with you guys like just one quick story, and then we'll dive into the virtual open house stuff. Okay. James Dyson, everybody I think like knows what a Dyson vacuum cleaner is, but we study in Ben's organization. He is constantly, like on a weekly basis, giving us somebody in history to study and to look at like how these people had success and what kind of things they went through to find that success. James Dyson failed a lot. He failed 5,270 times before he finally came up with the prototype that he ended up manufacturing as the first Dyson vacuum cleaner. This was a 15-year process that this guy tinkered with a prototype for the Dyson vacuum cleaner. We've done the math on this. Over 15 years, 5,271 prototypes. He basically did a prototype a day for 15 years. Now, the cool thing is he built the first prototype. The second prototype was most likely not a complete rebuild, right? It was probably a tinker from the first prototype. And I would guess, I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I would guess that most of those prototypes were just small tinkers that he made, right? Your first virtual open house is probably not going to be awesome, right? Your second one, you're going to tinker with it. Your 10th prototype of how you do a virtual open house is going to be better than your first one. You're eventually going to settle on your Dyson vacuum cleaner, right? So this guy failed. For 15 years, he failed. Eventually, he got his prototype, right? In 1993, you can see there, he created his first vacuum cleaner. Guess when he actually finished prototype 5,271? 1983. He finished his last prototype in 1983. So what happened between 1983 and 1993? James Dyson went to every single vacuum manufacturer in the United States and Europe. Not one of them would make his vacuum cleaner. For 10 years, this guy tried to get his vacuum cleaner made, and every single time the door got shut in his face. No, 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 no. Finally, in 1993, he decided he was going to manufacture his own vacuum cleaner. He just refused to let other people's opinions keep him away from doing what he thought was important. You want to know why we love the Dyson vacuum cleaner, by the way? They don't have bags. So that he had this revolutionary suction deal, right? But they didn't have bags. And one of the reasons he'd gone to all these manufacturers said, no, we're not going to do this, because the revenue stream for vacuum cleaner bags back then in the 80s was a $100 million business. And no manufacturer could conceive, right, of building the vacuum cleaner and not having that additional revenue stream for the bags. I can remember my mom had this old vacuum cleaner where she had to we couldn't find any more bags. The vacuum cleaner had been discontinued. They didn't sell the bags anymore. We didn't have money, so we couldn't even still buy a new vacuum cleaner. I used to have to dump that stupid old bag out, beat it, and then put it back in the vacuum cleaner. thank God for James Dyson, right? Thank God that he didn't let other people's opinions keep him from doing the thing. Thank God he didn't let failure or that first no, right? So guys, I want you today, as we go in here and talk about one slice of the Ben Kinney lead gen model, the open house slice, right? Which is a big part of our business. And when COVID came along, like it basically was going to take 25% of, you know, the lead gen activities in our business and just make them non-existent. And we couldn't let that happen, right? And not only us, lots of agents around the country said, I got to figure out a different way to do that. And so virtual open houses are now a thing. By the way, these are going to be a thing well beyond when we can all leave our houses again and we can have regular, real open houses, right? Virtual open houses are still going to remain a deal. Now, real quick, if you're a Brivity client, I'm going to show you a couple of tools here that you have on your website. We built these safety pages for you, right? Great thing that you can market and let people know, like real estate is still happening right now. We've had a number of leads come through our world in the last couple of weeks where as we've been reaching out to them, you know, and in many ways using kind of the same reach out attempts, the same plans and very similar scripts that we've used in the past. It's shocking to our teams, right? 30 teams all across the country, how many people we've heard say, well, can I still see a house? Like, is real estate still happening? Like, yeah, it's still happening. It's happening differently, right? And look, in some of your states I get right now today, like it is almost shut down entirely. Although I think of somebody like Sue Adler in Short Hills, New Jersey, where New Jersey was totally under shelter in place and they were not allowed to go into houses. And they still last week did 7 new contracts. So some people, because they are dedicated to action, have decided, well, this is not stopping us, right? And we've built some tools, virtual showing requests inside of the website. So if you're a Brivity client, every single one of your listings today has the opportunity for somebody to ask for a virtual showing as opposed to an in-person tour, which we've always allowed people to ask for on your websites. But when this thing came about, we said, geez, half the people on our website, they don't even know what's going on. They don't even know that they can still get a tour of this home, right? So we want to make it obvious to them. And then the one we're going to talk about at some depth today is this virtual open house registration form that we've created for you. Normally, when you're doing an open house, you're at the location, right? And the registration process that's happening there is as somebody's coming in the door. But we had to shift that so that somebody could sign up for your virtual open house, even though that thing might be an hour from now, a week from now, or a day from now. So we created these virtual open house registration pages. And I'm going to take you in and show you how we do one of those on a Brivity website. Okay, so what I need to do is come in here and let's just go to bktsouthsound.com. And this is Gail's website. This is one of the Ben Kinney Expansion Partners websites. And let's say I was going to be hosting an open house on this beautiful $1.5 million property right here in Seattle. Okay, so all I would do at this point is I would just come up here and I would do /open house. And when I did that /open house, it's going to load up this form right here like this. And I've got some options here. These are the 2 options that I would use if I was doing an in-person open house. I'm going to use this virtual open house registration option. I'm going to say, look, this thing it's not happening today. You almost would never build this thing on the day that you're doing it because you need to build this thing in advance because this is going to be the thing that we go out and market to get people to say, yeah, I want to come see this virtual open house on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Okay, so let's say we're going to do it on Saturday at 1 o'clock, right? And we're going to go from 1 to 2, let's say. The instructions, so what happens with these instructions is after the person registers for the virtual open, on the page, they're going to see these instructions. They're also going to get emailed these instructions right at the same time. Okay, so the instructions are basically telling them what to do on the day of the open house in order to access the actual viewing of it. That could be I'm going to do it on Facebook Live, go to my Facebook page, show up there at 1 o'clock. There'll be a live video there. It could be that I'm doing it as a Zoom meeting, and I just give them the meeting link of where we're going to be meeting on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Or it could be that I'm doing a Zoom webinar, and I just send them the link of where they're going to go to register for the webinar. Or maybe I just say, we'll send you the information about the actual call, check your email for that. And then I go and actually register them myself in the webinar. And we'll talk about kind of some of the differences in that here in a little bit. Then I'm going to add some tags to this thing, virtual open house. I want to be able to pull in everybody that was on a virtual open house. Maybe I'm going to run this as a Facebook ad, so I might do Facebook ad or some other kind of tag that ends up when the person registers on this form that we're about to create, right? They go into my database and they get those tags. So at this point I say create. I get a link here now, right? And then I can come over here and throw this bad boy up here. And what ends up happening is I get this form that I'm going to use now to go out and market, right? This is going to be kind of the point that I drive everything that I'm doing. Let's say today was Tuesday and I have my open house coming up on Saturday, right? For the next 3, 4, 5 days, everything that I do is going to be driven to this page right here, right? This link right here, we got to save. We got to make sure we've got it somewhere good that we can go back, and because we might post this on Craigslist, we might post this on Facebook, we might run a blog on Active Rain with this, we might send this out to our database, right? This is, everything is gearing towards this landing page right here. Okay, so most of you guys, in fact, let's take your temperature here. How many of you guys have done an open house, virtual open house already? Right? I mean, today's call is about taking action, and a lot of you guys are going to be uncomfortable. I mean, a lot of us are just uncomfortable doing something for the first time, right? We talk a lot in our organization about just living uncomfortably, right? Living on the edge of growth. All growth occurs when we're uncomfortable. Right? Before this, nobody done a virtual open house for the most part, right? Almost every single agent we've talked to on all of our teams, on many of the teams that are leveraging Brivity, I get it. I sit in an awesome perch and get to talk to a lot of really, really smart, driven agents doing with really big businesses. This is going to be their new normal, you guys. Like, we only did open houses before on Saturdays and Sundays because that's the only time you can get traffic. You know, every once in a while you might do a late open house on a Thursday evening or something. This virtual open house environment, especially today, it's 24/7 almost, right? Like, I was talking to my buddy Ryan last night, and I was saying he's doing one this weekend. And he's like, do you think Saturday's a good idea? And I'm like, well, it's not a bad idea, right? I'm like, but you know what's probably a better idea right now? Like a Tuesday night at like 7 o'clock, right? Like, what is everybody doing on a Tuesday? We're all like, we've watched all our Netflix shows, right? Like, a lot of us are scrolling on Facebook, right? So we couldn't do a Tuesday night open house at 7 o'clock, you know, before, right? We can do those now. I want you guys to get comfortable with doing this because it is going to become the new normal. Don't worry about making them perfect. I think, like, a lot of those, you know, fears of failure, or the reasons we don't take action, are around things like, I'm uncertain that I'll know how to do it. You know, it won't go off perfect. That second quote right there, we complicate things to justify our inaction. This is not a complicated process. We might try to complicate it in our head. We just have to do. We just have to do it, okay? So it doesn't have to be your listing either, which is kind of cool, right? And that's always been the case with open houses. In fact, in our world, most of the agents that get started in our business aren't doing open houses on listings they took, right? They're going to somebody in the office who has listings. We've got our team up in Toronto. They are actually going to other agents So they have an open house. Let's say it's in this one neighborhood, and that's the only house they have open in that neighborhood. They're going to other agents in that area as well and saying, hey, we're doing a virtual open house this weekend. We'd like to include your home as part of our virtual tour. We're doing a tour for all the homes that are for sale in this neighborhood. We'd love to do yours as part of it. We have yet in that particular office to have somebody go, no, I'd prefer you didn't highlight my listing to your buyers. Right? So it doesn't have to be your listing. It doesn't even have to be a listing from your office, right? It could be anybody's listing. You have to get permission, of course. And then it doesn't have to be one listing. What I mentioned that Austin and those guys are doing is, and they have a team, right? You may not have a team, but they do. And in their scenario, they kind of have one person who runs the virtual open from a home base. Then they have multiple agents out at multiple different locations. Because if you think about a virtual, like a real open house, you're there for 2 hours and people are just kind of coming through, right? You're not going to do a virtual open house for 2 hours and just kind of stay there. And then if you see somebody come on, like restart your tour, right? Like it's happening in a time frame. And the reality of that time frame is it's probably only like 15 or 20 minutes. Right? These tours don't end up being that long. Like if you think about, even if you walk to a client who is really interested through a house, like, you know, I mean, you get that client every now and then that wants to spend an hour in every house, right? But that's not normal. 15 or 20 minutes. And so what Austin's team is doing is they put an agent in 4 different locations. They have Austin in the main location. And so he's saying, all right, Jim, you're over there at 1238 Main Street. Right? This is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. Jim, tell us a little bit about the area around this house. How close is it to the park? Where? And Jim takes off, right? And Jim does his little walkthrough of 123 Main Street. Then we go over to Jill, and she's over at 428 Main Street, right? The condo down the way. And she walks through that property. So we're actually doing multiple virtual or multiple open houses inside of one session. Some of those open houses are not even actually a person on the ground walking through the home. Sometimes we're doing the open house, the virtual tour through the house in a Matterport style video, right? We could walk through that house on the screen while we're talking over the top of it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be one listing. It doesn't even have to be you at that listing. Okay, let's talk for a second about marketing these virtual open houses. So we got these signs ordered. Almost all of our teams now have this sign ordered, and this has replaced kind of our more generic quickly sign, which says like to get price and photos, right? So some of our teams have both signs out at the location, right? To get price and photos, text Ben Kinney to 59559. To get a virtual tour of this home, text BK Virtual to 59559. We want to take advantage of that space in front of the property that's there 24/7 as people are driving by and going, ooh, virtual open. Yeah, I'll do a virtual open house. Because I think a lot of people realize today, like there's not going to be an open house on this new listing on Saturday. It's not happening in Washington State. That's where I'm at. So we're going to market it with our virtual open house. Let's talk about Facebook boosted posts for a second. All right. I want to take you guys in. And so if we were going to boost a Facebook virtual post, we would be boosting this page right here, right? We would be placing this page on our business page, placing this link on our business page, writing up some commentary, right? And now we've got a post on our business page that we want to boost. So we come over here, and here's kind of, and this isn't a virtual open house. That's just one of our teams that I'm an admin on. I'm going to go in and act like I was going to boost this post, right? Let's say this was my virtual open house tour post. Virtual open house is coming up on Saturday. Let's say it's Tuesday. I'm going to suggest, gone are the days where you can be like, all right, I'm going to have an open house on Saturday. It's Friday. Let me get everything together. Maybe I run a couple ads, but I'm just kind of relying on on, you know, putting a bunch of signs, putting 20 signs out and getting some people to kind of come by because this is a hot market and people are always out looking at houses on a Saturday, right? We have to start marketing our open houses like with as much lead time as possible, right? So, I mean, we're on our teams, it's like we got a set coming on Saturday, right? We're done with those, bang. Monday comes and our team's back into getting marketing on that next, you know, that next Saturday's open house, right? So this is a post that we're doing on Monday, and this thing's running all the way up until Saturday when that virtual open's happening. So I'm going to come in here, right? There's a couple of things that we gotta kind of focus on. You guys are a special ad category. When you're marketing housing, you have to select this. If you don't select that special ad category, Facebook will reject your ad. Just straight out reject it. And probably leave you wondering, what? Why? That's why. It's a housing ad. And they can pick that up, right? Their algorithms know this is a housing ad, and if we don't identify it, then they'll reject it. So we got to come down here and say this is a housing ad category, okay? When we do that, we lose some of the flexibility of how we can market this because of fair housing laws. Right? Facebook had to make some changes a year or two ago where they just said you can no longer like select demographics to the degree that you could before if it's housing, because some of the selections you could make would exclude certain groups, which means your ad was not fair housing compliant. Awesome. What can we edit? The people in our audience right here, let's look at some of what we can do in here, okay? So Karen's team is down there in Atlanta. She probably doesn't want to be running ads to people all around Georgia. She probably wants to come in here and focus more on Atlanta. Right? So she gets in here and says, okay, cool, Atlanta. But she goes, dang, Conyers out here. A lot of people relocate from Conyers into Atlanta. Fine, I can go in here and add Conyers. All right, Conyers, Georgia. So I got 15 miles around Conyers. I got, 15 miles around Atlanta. I can adjust this and say, I actually want to go out a little bit further around Atlanta. Right, I want to get to 25 miles or something. Maybe I wanted to pull in Athens, right? I could pull in Athens. Notice, like, I can't even adjust these other things, guys. Right? I can't say, look, 21-year-olds, they drink beer. They don't buy houses, right? I can't adjust that. Because this is a housing ad, Facebook's basically saying you got to show this to everybody who's legally allowed to buy housing, right? That's fine. We can come down here. So right now I've got an audience of 2.5 million people. It's basically all the people on Facebook in a 23-mile radius of Atlanta and a 15-mile radius of Conyers, right? I probably want to add some demographic behavior in here to get myself an audience that's a little bit more kind of housing on the mind. Right? So a couple of the ways that I might do that is to come in here and do the interest of Zillow. If somebody has an interest that's in some way related to Zillow, and look, you guys get ads run to you all the time, I'm sure. Like the most recent one I bought like this back massager thing for my wife for Mother's Day, right? I actually bought the thing. Doesn't matter. Since 3 days ago when I went on their website, they've been like following me around Facebook all the time. I never went anywhere and said, I like back massagers, right? These 470,000 people that we see in a 23-mile radius around Atlanta and a 15-mile radius around Conyers, they did not like go and like Zillow. They did something on the internet that probably visited Zillow, right? Visited a site like Zillow, right? And Facebook's just behind the scenes, under the hood, collecting all this data about these people. So I want to get people that have interests similar to, tacked on another 50,000 people, right? Similar to, tacked on another 30,000 people, right? Similar to, I would use those three right there. I mean, that's a really good audience. Those 500,000 people in those areas around Atlanta and Conyers, right? This is an audience I want to target. These are people that have been out doing things on the internet that relate to the ad that I'm wanting to run, right? So I just come in here at this part and I'd say, that's my audience, like that. And the next time I made an ad, by the way, they saved this audience for me. right? So I don't have to do that every time. It's like the first time I do it. So then I come down here and I say, what's my budget going to be, right? I can edit this. I'm going to set my days first, okay? So today's, let's say it was a Monday. I'm like, all right, I got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I want this thing to run for 5 days, right? It's going to end on whatever. That would be 8 days, right? And I'm going to spend $100, right? If I was spending $100, it'd be $12.50 a day. They kind of, right, I could put a Facebook pixel. You guys can actually build a Facebook pixel into your Brivity website. If you want to reach out to our support, they can help you with that. Boost away, right? This post is going to get, it's going to be seen by between 1,300 and 3,600 people a day at this budget over 8 days. Okay. This is a great way to market your virtual open houses. Like it's a really great way. Now listen, you're going to be marketing these 2 ways are people I don't know. Somebody driving by my signs, I don't know them. A boosted Facebook post, I don't know them, right? Craigslist posts, I don't know them. Circle prospecting, I don't know them. Now, your existing database, some of those people you do know, but a lot of those people you don't really know, but you've got them already, right? They're like in the database. So one of the things that we just launched in Brivity this week is an ability for you to go into your filter in Brivity and filter based on price range for people that have been on your website. So if you've been using your Brivity website effectively, you've got, a decent sized database, you've been driving people with listing alerts, and they've been coming back and looking at properties. What we are doing is we are going into the database. We're saying filter. So let's say my listing was, let's say it was that $1.5 million listing we looked at earlier, right? I might go in there and say, I want to see everybody in my database who's looked at properties from $1 million and up. And I can pull into my index in Brivity, CRM, right? All those people that have ever been on my website looking at properties $1 million or above. And that's going to be who I invite to this open house, right? It wouldn't make a lot of sense for me to go into my database, send an email to 5,000 people in my database and say, hey, come see my open house this weekend, right? Because I'm going to send that to a bunch of $200,000 buyers in my database. And all that's going to do is repel me from them. They're going to be like, look at this jerk. He thinks we can afford $1.5 million. Like, we were looking at $200,000 listings on his website. What a DAS, right? Unsubscribe, block, delete, spam, right? You want to market to your database. I absolutely am all in favor of that. But you want to market to the people in your database that might actually be interested in that home. So what are we going to do? So we're going to send them an email. That's the easiest way, right? We're going to run a filter. We're going to bring those people in that kind of are similar, have looked at homes similar to the one that we're doing an open house for. They're going to get an email. But that's not it, guys. That's the easy way, because we can do one click and we can make the email and we send it, and then we sit back and we go, yeah, we marketed to our database. Wow, we took action. We sell a lot of houses on the Ben Kinney team because we take the hard actions. We do the hard actions, right? We go through and send a text message to all those people, right? With the link to the virtual open house registration page and say, hey, we're having a virtual open house on a home similar to houses you've been looking at on our website recently. Maybe you'd be interested in this property. We think it's really well priced. It's going to sell fast, right? Then guess what? That's the next easiest thing to do, right? The easiest was one click. We send it. The text's a little harder. I got to go through and text everybody. You can't do mass texting because it's illegal. When you do it, well, it's not illegal, but the first thing's got to say, reply stop to opt out. We don't want them replying stop because maybe they didn't want this particular virtual open, right? So we make you go in there and send the text to them intentionally. Then we take more action. We call those people. We call them up. We try to get them on the phone and say, hey, we're having a virtual open house this weekend. Guess what happens when we do that? Most of them go, hey, thanks, but yeah, we're not interested. We say, that's awesome. Tell me, are you guys still looking for houses? I saw you were on our website about 30 days ago. And then we have conversations with those people, right? And we find out, no, they're not going to be buying until after the summer. Or they're still trying to save for that down payment. Maybe we can have them talk to our lender and they can learn that, geez, they didn't need 20% down. They can do FHA. Like, it's just a great chance for us to reach into our database, right? We've always done this for open houses. We've always tried to invite people in, right? But I would encourage you to focus on the people that open house is most likely to resonate with. And we can do that by isolating down to people that have been looking at homes similar. All right. So if you're like, I'm good at a lot of stuff, but marketing's not one of them, but I want people to like know about my virtual open houses. We have a marketing package that we've kind of put together. It's run by Grant, who runs our leads campaigns, who runs our Brivity retargeting, right? We've put together a virtual open house kind of marketing package. So if you want us to do it for you, what you can do right now, like grab your phone. I know you guys half of you guys are probably on it, like this guy. I'm just going to play on Candy Crush. Just grab your phone right now. Text, just do it to the number 59559. If you want Grant's team to help you market your virtual open house. But here's the deal, guys. This is not for somebody that's like, I want to try this. I want to do one. This is for somebody that's committed to doing this as a strategy in their business. And it's going to, not necessarily every single week, but like you are going to have virtual open houses at some regular consistency into the future. It's something you want to start to adopt into your business. We can help you on an ongoing basis continue to market your open houses to drive people, to drive leads and registrations for those open houses, those virtual opens. All right, so I built the page earlier, right, showing you guys how we would do a virtual open house registration. There's another option, okay? There's an option to have them directly sign up at Zoom. Let's talk about the difference between those options and maybe some of the benefits and the drawbacks, okay? Here's I hesitated even like telling you that like maybe you just have them sign up directly on Zoom, right? Here's what happens when they sign up on this page, on the virtual open house registration page. Immediately the lead gets fired into the CRM, right? It gets tagged with the address of the property, whatever tags you added on that form when you built it, right? Virtual open house, for example. So we could easily go back later and be like, whoever registered on our virtual open house, right? That tag for this property at 4303 Enfield Drive, right? We could pull in those 12 people that registered for that one. When they register, they also then get a listing alert set up. So they start to get listings similar to this property, plus or minus 10 or 15% in the same city, right? So they'd get listings from 950 to 1,750,000 or something in Dallas. However, when they register here, they're not actually registered on that place we're going to do the open house, right? They're not registered on our Zoom webinar call. So on our teams, what we do is we drive them to this page, and then we actually go out and we create their registration on the webinar. So they signed up on a Wednesday. Our open house is on Saturday. We're not going to just kind of keep our fingers crossed and give them a link to our Facebook, right? Because they may or may not show up then. They're not going to be reminded unless I kind of put a plan in place or I started sending texts the day before or something, right? So we go and just put them in Zoom and register them on our webinar in Zoom, because then what happens is that day they get something from Zoom saying, here's where that virtual open is going to happen. Here's where you go. You click right here, just like you guys got for our webinar today, right? Then the day before, they get another reminder. Hey, don't forget about that virtual open house starting in one day, right? Then an hour before, they get a reminder, all from Zoom. Okay, now some of you might say, I don't have the time to like be managing like who's signing up on these virtual opens and then going over and registering on Zoom. So you might choose to just directly drive them to a Zoom page, right? Like your Facebook ad could literally go to your Zoom webinar registration instead of to your Brivity landing page. I wouldn't suggest that, but if you're somebody that doesn't have enough time to kind of keep this together, you might just decide, I'm just going to drive them to the webinar landing page, have them sign up there. I've had a bunch of people, so we did a similar webinar last week, had a lot of people in the last week say, should I be doing a webinar on Zoom or a meeting? And up until about 15 minutes before we came on this call, I didn't know the answer. I was like, I don't know, like, can you have them register for a meeting? Yeah, I don't know what the difference is, right? And then my buddy Ryan, I was talking to him, and he's done a few already. He's doing another one this weekend. We were kind of helping him tweak something, and he was like, hey, just real quick, do it on a webinar, not a meeting. I'm like, why? And he's like, the first one I did on a meeting, and when people come into a meeting, everybody can talk. And so what was happening, he's like, I'm going through, and all of a sudden I just hear a voice, and then their face would come up on the deal, and they'd ask a question. And he's like, it was cool, right? Because like I wanted him to be able to ask questions. He's like, but I wanted to really like go through it and then be like, okay, who has a question, and kind of take control and allow people to come in and ask questions. But in a meeting format, it's anybody and everybody can talk. So you get one person that's in there like yelling at their dog or something, and all of a sudden their face is up on your screen while you're trying to do the walkthrough, and then you're trying to figure out how to mute them. Just use it as a webinar. Now the thing about a webinar, it's paid on Zoom, right? Might be the cost of doing business right now. Now, you could do this entirely without Zoom. You could just do this on a Facebook Live. I have maybe a I don't know if I'd call it jaded. I'll call it jaded. A jaded look at this whole process right here. Here's what I mean by that. In my head, if I was using this, right, I was using my open house registration page, and they got to this place, and this place told them, I'm doing it on Facebook Live, right? I'm doing it on Facebook Live. Here's where you go. If you show up there at 1 o'clock, I'll be there. They don't have to register anywhere else, right? Obviously I want them to come to my virtual open on Saturday. But at this point, when they are seeing this screen right here, does it matter? Does it actually matter? I have all their information now. I got their name and their phone number and their email address. I know they wanted to see this virtual open. I don't really care if they show up on Saturday at 1 o'clock. Because when I'm done, Saturday at 1 o'clock, I'm going to have a recording of my virtual tour now. I'm just going to go back into my database. I'm going to go look at all those people that signed up. They have a tag of 4303 Enfield Drive, and then have virtual open house as a tag. Those will be the 12 people that signed up. I'll make sure they all get the recording. So even if they weren't able to join me live. So don't get caught up on like the mechanics in this area right here. It could be I just use this page. I just tell them go to my Facebook Live, and I'm just going to do it from my phone on a Facebook Live Saturday at 1 o'clock. Okay, let's talk about doing the virtual open house. So if you're doing it on a Facebook Live, or if you're doing it from a Zoom webinar meeting, in a Zoom webinar or a Zoom meeting, you can broadcast it to Facebook Live. I'm pleading with you to do this. Okay, do this. Even the lady Tiffany last night, who was practicing this with her mother and her mother-in-law, even she was doing her practice one. She was broadcasting on Facebook Live. She's like, I don't care. Like maybe 10 or 15 of my friends will see it. Like no big deal. She wanted to make sure the mechanics of it was all going to work right. When you do it on Facebook Live, what I would encourage you guys is to have some people with a vested interest in a position and willing to share it after you start broadcasting it. So the most obvious people are your sellers, right? Get your sellers to broadcast that thing so that their friends can see this thing going on, right? You want to be able to tap into their social influence and their social circle. So who else has a vested interest? Other people on my team, right? Other people on my team. Maybe I invite some of the agents in my office and I say, hey, maybe you guys have buyers that might be interested in this property. We're going to be doing a virtual open on it on my Facebook page on Saturday. Would love it if you'd share that virtual open while it's happening. Maybe you guys can pick up a buyer question or client or something, right? Because think about it, when they share that stuff, the comments that then happen on their shares of it are comments they kind of control, right? So you absolutely want to get kind of that, I would call that like a network effect, right? It's like I put one thing out and then I take advantage of some of the people I have in my network to get that thing broadcasting a little bit wider and further. All right, so this maybe is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Like, okay, now the easy part, like actually doing the virtual open house that day. Please practice. Like be like Tiffany, right? Like, I don't care. Call me the night before, which is what she did. Text me, 408-638-1834. That's my cell phone number. Like, text me and be like, Bob, geez, I can't get this thing working because I can't get Zoom to broadcast to Facebook. That's what she was originally having a problem with. Practice. Okay, just do a dry run. Go through the mechanics of it, right? Maybe do a dry run you don't promote at all. You just go through the mechanics of it. Maybe you still do it on Facebook, right? But you know, there's not going to be many people, maybe a person that comes by it because they're scrolling their feed or something and see you. But most of those people hopefully are friendly. An extra set of hands can be crucial. So when I was talking to my buddy Ryan, he doesn't have a big team, but his wife was going to help him run the one he did this weekend. He said the first one he went out there and it was too much. He couldn't keep up with the questions, and so now he's got his wife kind of helping him, right? Maybe it's somebody on the team. Like in Austin's scenario, they have Austin kind of at home base, right? And he's just like I'm here with you guys. Here, I'll show you here. I think now you guys see two pictures of me. You see me on my phone, which is right here, okay? And then you see me on my computer, kind of command central with my other set of hands right here. This set of hands on the computer could be looking at your guys' chat questions, like Carl saying, I'm confused on the mechanics. Sorry, how are the tags automatically set up from signing up on the registration? Right, so I can come back here and say, right here, Carl, when we go in and build this page, there's two tags that get assigned to this person automatically, a tag for open house and a tag for the address of the property. So whenever somebody registers on this registration right here, well, I lost my registration, but they'll get the address as a tag, and they'll get open house as a tag. But whatever else I add in here, virtual open house, for example, Facebook ad, those tags then will come in on that lead when they register as well. Had I only been on this, I might not have saw that chat down here just being on my phone walking through the open house, right? So what Ryan has Desi doing is she'll feed those questions to him that she sees in chat. Hey, Ryan, Carl said that he wanted you to go through the tags. You know, he wanted you to go back into the kitchen real quick and look at the stove because he hates, you know, convection ovens or whatever, right? And so Ryan could walk back because Desi's at command central kind of pointing him in the right direction. Thanks for being a prop for me there, Carl. That was fantastic. All right. And then get a gimbal. So my buddy Ryan, he's like, I went out, I did the first one. He's like, yeah, it was a little bit, you know. He's like, now I got a gimbal. And he's like, it looks like I'm moving around like a professional. A gimbal is just the thing that you hook up to your phone that smooths out any shakiness that you might have. $40, $50 for a really good gimbal. You can hook up to your phone and now you'll be the smoothest thing since Michael Jackson, right? So what do you talk about? This is like, for a lot of you guys, this is the hard part, right? Is this idea of like putting yourself on camera and then being like, oh my God, I'm going to go on Facebook live and I might say shit, right? Like, oh my goodness, or I might trip in the house, or I might like, your drunk monkey on your shoulders telling you a million things that you're going to mess up when you're actually there talking at the house. All right, Aaron's calling me out a little bit. He says the cheapest gimbal he found was $89. So you might have to go a little bit above what I said at 50 there, but it's a decent quality at $89. And that might be just, Aaron, because every single real estate agent in the United States, all 1.5 million of you guys are out there trying to find a gimbal right now. So you think about like one of these versions, you're generally going to be starting like outside front of the house, right? Great time to talk about the neighborhood, right? Pan down the street, right? Here's what this neighborhood's like. Here's the beautiful front yard, right? The park's half a mile in that direction. You can walk there easily, right? You can get your Starbucks in the morning by driving up the road a mile that way, right? Mile and a half from the I-5, take you a half hour to get to downtown Seattle. It's conveniently located between the east side and downtown. Seller's favorite thing about the house. We've actually had a couple of our teams who've had the seller at the virtual open and done a little mini interview with the seller. Great idea, right? Jan, tell the people watching today what you and your family have loved about living in this house for the last 7 years, right? Like, let people see the pride of the person who lived there before, the pride in ownership, right? If they're not willing to do that, you need to make sure you got a list of a few of their favorite things. Maybe some like interesting stories or funny facts, maybe just a joke or two that you've got in your back pocket to just kind of lighten the mood, because, when somebody's walking into your open house, you don't have to hold their attention, right? They're there. When you're doing this thing and you can't see the reaction of the people on the other side, I don't know what you guys are doing right now, right? Over the years, I've realized that if I'm not a little bit energetic and a little bit engaging with you guys, you're tuned out. We've got a bunch of teams that have been doing trivia or like throughout the tour, right? Just to keep it interesting. And a lot of them will do like a $5 Starbucks gift card, right? So they'll be like, they've got, their 6 $5 Starbucks gift cards. They've got 6 trivia questions they're going to ask as they go through the tour, right? So those questions might be something like, as we look at the kitchen in this house, it has some really cool molding, crown molding up around the top here. Does anybody know, for a $5 Starbucks gift card, can anybody tell me what style of crown molding this is? Right? As we go into the bedroom, like, you guys do this stuff every day, right? The questions people ask, the stuff that people are interested in when they're walking through the house. Turn it into a game somehow, right? Because if they win the game, guess what they got to do then? They got to give you their information so you can get them the card, right? But throughout the video, I've watched a lot of open house tours. I told my wife the other day, I'm like, almost every night in my feed, and definitely on the weekends, there's virtual open house, like these live virtual open houses that agents are doing, sometimes directly on Facebook, sometimes as Zoom shares into a Facebook Live. So I've watched more open houses in the last month, virtual opens. One of the things that's driving me nuts, like on a couple of people on our teams, I've actually texted them right after and been like, hey, you did 15 minutes. You walked through that entire house for 15 minutes. You didn't give me one call to action. You didn't say, if you see anything in this house that's sparking an interest for you, my cell phone's 408-638-1834. Send me a text, right? If you see anything in this, you have to have calls to action. Now, quickly, if you're a Brivity platform client, quickly is a great potential call to action inside of your virtual tour. So what kind of what kind of calls to action would I be thinking about? I definitely have one around my lender, right? On our Ben Kinney teams, we have the Keller Mortgage, or some of our teams have BKCO Mortgage. We have this ability to do no lender fee mortgages or help people get no lender fee mortgages with $1,000 cash back at closing. I might mention that during my walkthrough, and then I might say, if that's something you're interested in, text BK Mortgage to 59559. And we can help you guys set up keywords like that where you control the response, right? That response, if they texted BK Mortgage, might just be a link back to his loan officer's website or something. And then he got the lead. He's got the cell phone number now of the person who was watching his virtual open house who said, yeah, we need that $1,000 credit at closing and no lender fee mortgage. And they texted BK Mortgage. You have to have calls to action. Sometimes that could be just giving your cell phone number, right? Just repeatedly giving your cell phone number out. Think, I'm gonna do 20 minutes here. I gotta give my cell phone number out 3 or 4 times throughout this call. I've given it to you guys twice already, 408-638-1834. 3 times now you guys have gotten my cell phone number, right? I gave you a quickly call to action earlier where I said, if you guys want us to do your marketing, text "just do it" to 59559. That's the second time I gave you that call to action. So I might give you the mortgage call to action on my virtual walkthrough in the beginning. I might give it to you in the middle. I might give it to you at the end. If you'd like a recording of this call because you're watching it right now, but your wife's not, and you know your wife's going to make the decision if you actually buy this house or not, text my recording to 59559, and we'll send you the recording of this virtual tour so you can share it with your wife when she gets home tonight. Some of you guys are funny. You guys are out there buying gimbals. Like, people are sending me messages about their gimbals they got and where you get them, and awesome. All right, so after the open house, use the recording, you guys. Everybody that signed up who didn't show up, well, you don't know if they showed up or not. Send them the recording. Right? Go out, use that recording this next week as you're reaching out to leads, right? Somebody registered on your website on a property similar to that one you guys did the open house on. Send that. The first or second day that you're reaching out to that lead, say, hey, here's a virtual open house we did on one of our listings this last weekend. If you guys would like to see a tour of any other houses on our website, let us know and we can probably arrange that.